Jennifer Smith, True Love Scam Recovery, Narcissistic Abuse Unwound. As always, this is unscripted. I'm gonna riff about red flags. Red flags. We've all seen lists of red flags. I think of them as proof and enough proof to turn and run the other way. What's on those lists? Love bombing, gaslighting, lack of empathy, rage. We feel confused. But if you think about it, those lists of red flags indicate, by the fact that we're experiencing those things, that we are already in it. We're already under their spell. We've already been suffering. We're already in what we think is a relationship. That means a lot of pain, and it means a lot more time until we can extract ourselves, until we can make our escape. Because that spell we're under is incredibly powerful, and it happens the moment we meet them. If we are zapped and perceive or think that what we're experiencing is love, we're in it. It's too late to just turn around and walk away. Certainly not easily. So what I'd really like to talk about is the real red flag, the real proof, in other words, that happens the second we meet them, the second we encounter them. If we could recognize what's happening at that point and skip all the rest of it, that would be fantastic. That is what I do now, because certainly I've come across other sociopaths, what some people might call a narcissist, since escaping and recovering from the one that brought me to doing all of this work, because they're out there, they exist. So how is it that sometimes we're zapped and sometimes we're not? That has to do with circumstances, timing, and if we think that person is cute or not, or impressive or not when we do encounter them. Yeah, so by the time we're being love bombed and gaslit and confused, or suspecting they're lying, but wanting more proof, that's the stuff we want to skip, right? So what happens the moment we meet them? Can you remember the millisecond, the split second, the very first encounter with the person that led you to need to listen to this kind of podcast? I remember what it felt like to meet other people that after this experience with this nutbag I married, I was able to recognize as a sociopath before this person, that at the time before, I didn't know about sociopaths or narcissists or psychopaths or parasitic predators, or that these evil creatures existed. So before the nutbag I married, for example, there was a guy that I met in a bookstore. And the second I met him, it was almost like nothing else existed but he and I standing there talking. He was deeply interested, or seemed to be, in what I was saying. But he wasn't interested in what I was saying for the reasons that I thought he was, the normal reasons. He was scoping me out. He was hunting, as it turns out. So from that first encounter, I gave him my phone number, and he was in my mind constantly after that. And while we were in the bookstore, before I gave him my phone number, I was quite aware of another feeling of a self-consciousness that isn't typical for me, an uncomfortable kind of self-consciousness, and not knowing why I felt self-conscious. Normal self-consciousness certainly can occur. Say we get a new haircut and we're aware of it and wondering if anybody else is going to notice. That's a kind of self-consciousness that's normal. Or we've recently lost weight or gained weight, or there's a stain on our shirt. Is somebody going to see that? Not that kind of self-consciousness. A wariness, disturbing self-consciousness is the only thing I can call it. It's really hard to describe these things. And also, this guy had with him two guy friends. And I could see somehow in my peripheral vision or peripheral awareness that the two guys were very focused on their friend, the guy who was talking to me, and following us with their eyes and bodies around the bookstore as we moved around the bookstore to different shelves, observing their friend, and almost in a smirky kind of way, I was aware of them observing what this guy was doing, almost like they were watching an event, a show. And in fact, they were, weren't they? I don't know what they knew about him or if they were also sociopaths, but there was definitely an abnormalness happening. So, an uneasiness, an unusual self-consciousness, and strangeness, just a different than normal sense of stuff. Even as you're thinking, this is kind of neat, there's another element to it that we can't quite even pinpoint. That is the first proof. Honestly, that's the first proof. Now, we're not all going to feel that or be aware of that or be able to catch that, but it is something to start to learn to be aware of. We want to develop the skills of a really strong self-awareness that will then allow us to be alerted to proof/red flags so that we can avoid these traps with these monsters. So this guy, he was constantly on my mind. I guess he must have eventually called me or texted me, and I don't remember how soon after meeting him, because this was years ago, but we did get together, and I didn't want to. Can you imagine that? In my head, my cognitive brain, I was not interested in this person for various reasons, practical life reasons. I didn't think he was right for me. But I went anyway. Not only did I go on this so-called date, but it had to happen by me logistically driving to pick him up because he didn't have a car. Okay, no big deal. If you live in the Netherlands, I live in Los Angeles. Not many of us are going to go out with a guy who doesn't have a car, and vice versa. Guys aren't going to go out with a woman who doesn't have a car, or a woman with a woman, or a man with a man, or whatever it is, because you need a car here. And most often on dates, you meet at the location. Nobody picks anybody up for a date. So here I was, going to see this guy who had no car, pick him up for a date I didn't want to go on, and being very aware that I didn't want to do this, but how strange was it that I was doing this? And that pull to do it anyway, that thing where we do something we wouldn't otherwise do, that is proof that that other person is a sociopath, or call them a narcissist. Same difference. Save yourself. Right? So there I am. I go pick him up, and I'm appalled by where he lives. I mean, I don't judge people really, but honestly, some things are not going to fit with us, whoever we are. There are things that are not for us. So be aware if you're doing something that ordinarily would not, as they say, be for you. That is proof as well. Always, 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 this is proof. Feeling uneasy, feeling an unusual kind of self-consciousness, discomfort, doing something you wouldn't otherwise do, doing something with someone that has aspects or qualities or circumstances in their life that are not for you, typically. Those are all signs that you are falling into a quagmire of the hell of a sociopath. Okay, moving forward. So I did go on the date. Let's say you do too. Didn't want to. Didn't want to be there. When the guy answered the door, his face shocked me. When I met him in the bookstore, I had perceived him as very energetic, vivacious, friendly, outgoing, attractive. I mean, attractive physically. His body, fit, and good looking, and a nice, open, friendly face. Handsome. The person that answered the door had a different face. It shocked me. I mean, in a way that I had to cover up my reaction. I seriously thought, this is a different guy. Who's this guy? Just a completely different person. He really had a completely different face, so much so that I was wondering if I was in the right place or if I'd come to the wrong apartment. He had a heavy, brooding, maybe mean, irritated, like he was annoyed, dark, heaviness. He looked entirely different. I really wasn't sure it was the same guy. And then I had to adjust because obviously also it was the same guy. I went into instant cognitive dissonance, actually. In my brain, I was trying to reconcile the memory of the face of the person I met and this face in front of me. So weird. Now, this can happen in photographs as well. You might meet them online and see only a photo of somebody you think is really great looking or fun looking, looks a certain way that's attractive to you. And then you meet in person and they don't look the same. Or if you see sets of photographs of them online on their social media, however you see images that vary photo to photo, or within some of the photos they look different, almost like a different person, you have come across a sociopath, a narcissist, a psychopath. How bizarre is this? But it's real. So discomfort, dis-ease, a weird self-consciousness, doing something you wouldn't normally do, something you wouldn't otherwise do, something that's atypical for you, doing something that goes against what you want or your better thinking. So the guy answers the door. I don't know if I even had recovered from the shock, but what he does is invite me in, and I step in, and he's getting ready to go, for us to go out. And he's moving around, and it turns out it's a studio apartment. So I can see him. He's just moving in this one room, bed, the closet door, a little kitchen off to the side. And he's saying that he had thought that he would make dinner for us, but then he changed his mind, which is why he's not ready when I come to the door, because he had to dress a different way or something, I don't remember, because he thought it would be better if we went out, because he didn't want me to think he was, quote, that kind of guy, end quote. I didn't even know what he was talking about, and I was quite relieved that we weren't supposed to stay there. But as I am telling you this story right now, it has just popped in my head that he was throwing out bait by saying I was going to make dinner for you, but then I didn't want you to think I was that kind of guy, ... He was genuinely fishing and hoping, potentially, that my response would be, oh, that's okay, let's stay here, so that he wouldn't have to spend any money, number one. Number two, possibly, so he wouldn't have to be seen in public with me. Number three, possibly, so he could close the deal quite quickly with immediate sex. I am just seeing this now. Amazing. So it didn't work in the moment, but I waited for him to get ready. We went out. I had no idea where to go. I don't go to bars. I don't go to clubs. I didn't want to, I just had no idea what to do or where to go. And he also claimed that he didn't know where to go, that he didn't really drink, which of course found out later was all malarkey. But at the time, I'm like, okay, and thinking, what the heck? So I just see a Western bar, like a restaurant. I don't know if it was a restaurant. I don't know what it was, honestly. It was kind of an odd place. We went in, sat down at a table. He ordered a drink. I did not because I was driving. And I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be there at all. His face had gone back to the nicer looking face, but I didn't want to be there. Remember, I had in my head the logical reasons why this guy was not a fit for me. I really didn't want to go out with this guy. I was just waiting for this to be over. I had my arms up on the table, bent at the elbow, just resting on the table. And he reached out at one point and touched my forearm. And when he touched me, and I'm saying he touched me through a leather coat, a thick leather coat, and a long-sleeved shirt, I felt some sort of thing go through my entire body. It was not a sexual energy. It was not a sexual attraction. It was energetic. It was electricity. I don't know. It was something that gripped me and seeped into every part of me, every cell, it seemed. That kind of sensation is proof, 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 proof. Run. I did not want to see this guy. I saw him a few more times. It was incredibly painful. He stood me up once. Weird stuff happened. Weird stuff happens with them. I kept fighting internally with myself to not see him at all, which eventually, quite soon, I did completely stop seeing him. And yet, it took me 3 years to get over this person. 3 years. We had sex once, exactly once. I cut him off. I didn't respond to him. I didn't change my phone number. I didn't know about that at the time. I didn't know about sociopaths, narcissists, psychopaths. I didn't know anything about them. This was before the nutbag I married and before I figured all this out. That is just one experience I've had with a psychopath, not knowing that that's what was happening. But because I was not logically, from my practical mind, interested in him, these emotional, physical body sensations that we end up interpreting as love were very clear. They stood out starkly. Those are the proof. Those are the things I want us all to be able to feel before it happens, so we don't ever fall into this again. I'll list them. Let's just run through those things that I have recounted experiencing. Thinking of them constantly after you meet. Feeling they're kind of in your body. Oftentimes, this can also carry with it a sexual thinking of them, somehow being moved every kind of way, including sexual, inside your body. And that is constant. Like, they're constantly in your head, in your body. A sense of uncomfortable self-consciousness when you meet. A kind of wariness that is there if you can parse it out. A different than normal sense of what's going on. A disturbing self-consciousness. peripheral awareness of being separate from the environment we're in when we encounter them, and absolutely doing something you wouldn't otherwise do, making a decision to say yes or go somewhere or do something that you wouldn't typically do, acquiescing, agreeing to a situation that you also know is not truly for you. If you see their appearance change from one time seeing them to the next, if they look different in one photo to the next, a drastic kind of difference. I don't mean now they're smiling, now they're not. I mean, something strikes you that is deeply different between their appearance in one situation or photo or moment and another. And that electrical charge, it's as if you've been infiltrated. You feel energetic vibrational reaction in your body. I hope this helps. I hope you can relate to this. Please email me, Jennifer@truelovescam.com. Please think about doing sessions with me. Just one time, even talking about your experience will shift things for you, even if that is all we did. Just now, when I was telling this to you, I recalled something about the experience with this nutbag that I couldn't get out of my mind for 3 years, but was never even really involved with. The incident where he was baiting me, which everything they say is bait, when we first got into his studio apartment, and he said, "Oh, I changed my mind. I thought we'd go out, but I changed my mind because I didn't want you to think I was that kind of person." That was the guy baiting me, and I never realized that until right now. Talking it out, talking about it, telling it is one of the major ways that we make discoveries about what really happened to us. And when you're doing that with someone who is not judging you, who has lived it, and who understands it to the depths that I do, man, oh man, it's a wonderful thing. So if you're up for it, reach out, do some sessions. I also have the book, Breaking Up with Evil, Book 1, which is available on Amazon. And I'm working on Breaking Up with Evil, Book 2. It should be out in a couple months. It's hard to say. It takes a lot of time to get these things together. And there's always this podcast. And my website is still up, truelovescam.com. There are the Facebook pages and social media. I will say I am not really frequently posting on the social media anymore. I'm thinking about taking the website down, maybe turning it into a Substack. I'm just shifting where my focus in life is going. And yeah, so I'm still here. You can reach out, Jennifer@truelovescam.com. And you are gorgeous inside and out. This is Jennifer Smith, True Love Scam Recovery, Narcissistic Abuse Unwound, sending you all good things.